And we are on chapter 14 of Sketches. So have you figured out where we're going to sleep tonight? Ashley asked Brent as she finished off the last of her submarine sandwich. Actually, she didn't eat the final bite, the last meatball. Instead, she folded it up in the wrapper. I knew where that was going. Pumpkin liked meatballs almost as much as chicken nuggets. Brent took a sip from his drink. Our place to sleep is in the bag. What's that supposed to mean? She asked. I mean, it's in the bag, Brent said. In this bag. And he held up his backpack. We're going to sleep in your backpack? We're going to sleep in what's inside the backpack. Let me show you. He undid the buckles and started to pull something out. Something made of nylon. It's a tent, I said. A 4-man tent. Where did you get it? Ashley asked. Bought it from a guy for $20. A pretty good deal. We're going camping? I asked. In a manner of speaking, yes, Brent said. We're going to sleep in Tent Town, although it really isn't a town, and not all the people live in tents. Is it far from here? I asked. It's in a little triangle of land between the expressway, the lake, and a railway line, Brent explained. Thousands and thousands of people drive by on the road or zip past on their commuter trains to the suburbs without ever knowing it's there. And it's okay to just set up a tent there? I asked. There are lots of tents, but some other people have used scraps to build themselves little houses. Come on, you have to be joking. Nope, little houses. And nobody has noticed they're doing that? I asked. Brent shrugged. It'd be hard to miss, so I figure the city knows they're there. I just think nobody cares because they're not bothering anybody and they're out of sight. You know, out of sight, out of mind. He's right, Ashley agreed. Nobody really wants to help the homeless. They just want them to be homeless someplace else, someplace where they can't see them. I hear it's not a bad place to live. If it's not so bad, then how come we haven't lived there before? I asked. It's different, Brent said. It's not so much street kids as older people there, people who have been on the streets for years and years, even decades. Of course I'd seen people like that around all the time. We didn't really talk to them much, but some of them seemed friendly enough. Others just seemed crazy, pushing around shopping carts filled with junk, or standing on the corner yelling at passing cars, or just plain passed out drunk behind a store or on the sidewalk. Brent went on. It's really like a little town with its own rules. You know, people have to leave each other alone, no stealing, that kind of thing. Rules can be good, I said. It's one of the reasons I want us to stay there now. I never thought I'd be saying this, but I have too much money on me. How much do we have now? I asked. Brent looked around, like he was afraid somebody might overhear him, although there was nobody around us. Close to $600. I couldn't help but smile. We were more than halfway there. You know, usually I'm not a big fan of rules. I had enough of that when I was living at home. But right now, this looks like a good trade-off. A few rules for a little bit more safety, Brent said. I gotta look out for the two of you, not just me. I don't want anybody taking our money, taking away our future. I knew what and who he was talking about. I didn't think I'd ever forget those punks who beat us up and robbed us. I could see those eyes, that sick smile, the evil laugh. Brent said, We'd better get going. It's going to be dark soon, and we have to get permission and get everything set up before then. Permission? I asked. You'll see, Brent answered, and we grabbed our backpacks and followed him. We went under the expressway, across the train tracks, and then through a small gate in a chain-linked fence about 10 feet high. It was an eerie scene. There were dozens and dozens of tents, maybe 100 of them, although it looked as though they were all scattered about. You could see that lots of them were clustered together in little groups. Some were small, some large. A few almost looked new, while others were tattered and torn and worn and looked like a strong wind might blow them away. They were green and gray, camping colors, and orange and red, and rainbows, all blowing and heaving in the winds coming off the lake. The way they moved, they almost looked as if they were alive. Interspersed between the tents were little buildings. Most weren't much bigger than the tents themselves. They were made of wood and metal, pieces that didn't belong together and had probably been rescued from dumpsters and alleys around downtown, but somehow came together to make sheds, shacks, homes. Some were just hastily put together pieces that looked less sturdy than something a bunch of 10-year-olds would nail together to make a tree fort. Others looked more solid and planned. They looked like real little houses. Almost. I couldn't help thinking about discarded pieces sheltering discarded people. Somehow that seemed right. Together in pairs, or clustered in groups, people stood on the strips of cement walkway, crumbling with weeds growing up through the cracks that formed the streets of the city. A larger group was clustered around a fire in a metal oil drum. People were laughing, joking around, talking. As we passed, some nodded in our direction, a few even said hello. Others ignored us as if we weren't there, vacant eyes staring out at things I couldn't see. Brent was right. They were definitely older than the kids who lived in squats or slept in doorways. In fact, we were, without a doubt, the youngest people there. There were some who were old enough to be my parents, or even my grandparents. The flaps on some of the tents were open, and I caught a glimpse of people already inside. Probably tired, maybe drunk or stoned. I heard one man talking loudly, cursing, swearing at somebody or something, imagined or real. "Can you tell us where we can find the mayor?" Brent asked two women who were standing and talking, each holding a paper cup of coffee. "You'd have to go up to City Hall to see him," one of them said. "It's that way," said the other, pointing down one of the walkways. "You can't miss it. It's right on the breakwater. I think it's 2 or 3 down from the water pipe." "3," the other woman said. "Big place. It has flowers out front. Petunias, I think." "Geraniums," the first woman corrected. She shrugged. "I was never good with flowers." "Thanks," Brent said. "The mayor? City Hall? What next? Munchkins with lollipops?" We started in the direction they'd pointed. As we got closer, there were fewer tents and more buildings. More shacks and sheds, really. We stopped in front of a place with flower pots filled with well-tended, blooming flowers. The pathway leading up to the door was made of crushed red stone. This place was larger than any of the surrounding buildings, big enough to have more than one room, and there was a stovepipe sticking out through the shingled roof. This guy wasn't just here for a few nights. This was his home. "This must be the place," Brent said. The door itself couldn't have been any more than 3 feet high. It made me think of the dwarf's cottage from Snow White. On the door was a little metal knocker. Brent tapped it against the door 3 times. There was no answer. "Maybe he's not home," I suggested. "Maybe I should knock again." Suddenly, the door opened and a man appeared. He was older, maybe in his 50s. His hair was gray and he had a beard, but it was neat and tidy. "What can I do for you 3?" he asked. "Are you the mayor?" Brent asked. "Might be. Who's asking?" "Me. Us. I'm Brent. This is Ashley and Dana. We were wondering if it'd be okay if we pitched a tent here in Tent Town." "Maybe you could. Why are you bothering me?" "We didn't mean to bother anybody. We just thought we shouldn't go ahead and pitch a tent without talking to the mayor," Brent said. His expression became thoughtful. "Showing some consideration," he said. "Lots of kids don't understand consideration." "We thought it wouldn't be right to just come without being invited. You know, it wouldn't be respectful." He paused. "You are the mayor, right?" He smiled. "I'm the mayor. So you want to stay here, do you?" "If that's okay with you," Brent said. "Anybody can put up a tent. For a night," he said. "You looking to stay for more than a night?" "Hoping to," Brent said. "We heard this is a good place. Better than the streets." The man laughed. "A lot better than the streets. We got order here, rules here, laws here." "Do you think maybe we could stay longer?" Ashley asked. "Maybe. Let me ask you a few questions first before we decide anything." "Go ahead," Brent said. "It's your town." He smiled again, and the smile erupted into a burp, and the burp smelling of alcohol. "So, why shouldn't a mayor be drinking? The mayor of this city where I used to live ran his car off the road, across the sidewalk, through a fence and into a backyard, and it finally ended up at the bottom of a swimming pool. I heard, everybody heard, that he'd been drunk as a skunk. He didn't even get charged. All he got was a chauffeur-driven car." Fun fact, the premier of Saskatchewan killed somebody drunk driving, so here we go. "Any of you ever been in prison?" the mayor asked. "Never," I exclaimed. "Me neither," Ashley said, and Brent shook his head in agreement. "Ain't like it's something to be ashamed of," he said. "I've done my time." I'd already noticed the crude ink tattoos on his hands. I'd seen them on lots of people on the streets. Brent had told me that they were prison tattoos. I wondered what the mayor had done to get himself into prison. Might even be better if you had been to prison, he continued. Rules here are pretty much the same as there. Main thing is you stay out of people's places. Don't matter if it's a door or a tent flap. You don't go in if you're not invited. Just because people don't have much don't mean they shouldn't get to keep what they have. Understand? We all nodded. Same goes for things you see lying around. Don't touch and don't take what isn't yours. We wouldn't, Brent said. Does that mean if we left something in our tent, nobody would take it? Ashley asked. They'd better not, unless they want to deal with the mayor. His eyes got dark and threatening. How about drugs or alcohol? Any of you have problems? I don't do drugs or drink, I exclaimed. I don't care if you do or you don't. Sometimes people gotta do what they do to ease the past or the present. I just want to know if any of you have a problem that will cause the rest of us to be bothered. We won't bother nobody, Brent said. You better not. We treat each other with respect here, and that means when it gets dark, we all get quiet. People gotta sleep, and nobody goes around hitting or hurting anybody else. You don't have to worry about that, Brent assured him. I have to worry about everything and everybody. That's my job. That's what a mayor does. Any of you carrying any weapons? I've got a knife, Brent said. I held my breath. Was he going to toss us out or take away the weapons? I knew there was no way Brent was giving up his knife. Where is it? The mayor asked. Here, in my pocket, Brent said, patting the leg of his pants. Do you want to see it? I don't ever want to see it. It stays in your pocket. Brent nodded. Another thing, we got a curfew. The gate is locked at 11:30. If you're not in by then, don't bother trying. And don't even think about climbing the fence or... Hey, Mayor! A voice yelled out. We all turned around to see 3 men rushing towards us. They looked to be in a hurry. They looked serious. He's back, the first man said loudly. Good, let's go, the mayor said as he suddenly pushed past us. Should we get somebody else? One of the other men asked. Why? The mayor asked. There's only 1 of him and 4 of us. 5 if you count him, he said, pointing to Brett. You willing to help? Sure, Brent said. I had to fight the urge to ask what they wanted Brent's help with. This didn't sound like a good thing. Good, because that's my last question. Wanted to know if you 3 were willing to help enforce the rules. Does that mean we can stay? Ashley asked. You can stay for a few nights, and we'll see how it goes. You follow the rules, and you got yourselves a home. A home? Is that what this was? I guessed it was better than living in an abandoned building or under a bridge. Actually, I was willing to bet it was better than a lot of places in the suburbs that had doors and windows and fancy kitchens. Besides, this was just temporary until we got our own apartment. We better get moving, one of the men said. Why? You think he's going somewhere? The mayor asked. Doubt it. He went right into his tent. I just thought we should get it over and done with before it gets too late. We don't want to disturb people. Good point. The mayor turned to face us. It's good the 3 of you are here. You get to see up close what happens to people who don't follow the rules, who don't show respect to people. The mayor started off. The 3 of the men fell in behind him, and then the 3 of us brought up the rear. What's happening? I hissed at Brent. Don't know exactly. I think they're kicking somebody out. They stopped in front of a small, beaten-up old tent. The flap was closed, and while I couldn't see anybody inside, I could see a faint light shining through the nylon. Harrison, the mayor yelled. We need to speak to you. There was no answer. Harrison, the mayor yelled even louder. I can hear you. I'm drunk, not deaf, a voice called out from the tent. His words were slurred, confirming the drunk part. Come on, out here, the mayor ordered. There was no answer and no movement. Don't make me come in there to get you, the mayor yelled. His voice was angry, filled with authority. Don't make me come out there to get you, the man mumbled back in response. Despite it all, I had to fight not to laugh. You trying to make me mad? The mayor thundered. He had a look of pure anger plastered across his face. Go away. Leave me alone. If that's the way you want it, then that's the way it's going to have to be. The mayor reached into his pocket and pulled something out. He hit a little button to reveal the glare of a shiny blade. I stepped back, almost stumbling in shock. Suddenly, all 3 of the other men, had knives in their hands too. What were they going to do? The mayor walked around one side of the tent and one of the men followed. The other 2 went around the other side. Brent, I hissed. I don't know, he said, his voice cracking over the last word. I just don't know. The mayor lunged forward and cut one of the tent guy's ropes. At the same time, the other men did the same. The mayor kicked the side of the tent, causing the whole thing to collapse onto the ground and settle around the form of a man lying inside. Before Harrison could think to react, the mayor and his men heaved the tent over, ripped the pegs out of the ground, and rolled it onto its side. He began yelling, but the men ignored his cries as all 8 hands grabbed the tent and wrapped it tightly around the man, who was now hopelessly trapped and struggling inside the nylon. Then they picked up the tent and started to carry him away. The 3 of us followed after them as they carried the swearing, screaming, struggling, nylon mummy of a man. Others came out of their tents, or stopped talking, and joined in until there was a parade following behind. The mayor and his men carried their load over the chain-link fence, which we could now see was topped by a few strands of barbed wire. 2 of them grabbed the tent by the front and 2 from the back. They began to swing it back and forth, higher and higher. What were they going to do now? Then, as the tent reached the height of its swing, they let it go, and it flew up, and over the fence. It landed with a loud thud on the ground on the other side, then rolled and banged, and finally came to a rest against some bushes. The entire crowd started to scream and yell and laugh and applaud. I was stunned, unable to believe any of the things I'd just witnessed. Then, before my eyes, the man started to emerge from his nylon cocoon. First his head appeared, and then he peeled the tent away, crawled out, kicked at it, and struggled to his feet. He was alive. He was okay. "You stinking idiots!" he screamed. "You could have killed me!" "You're lucky we didn't," screamed back one of the men. "You think you can get rid of me that easy?" he yelled. "Seems pretty easy to me," the mayor answered, to a roar of approval from the crowd. "You haven't seen the last of me," he yelled. "We have, unless you're looking for something worse. You come back, and it won't just be the ropes of your tent we'll cut." "Brave talk when you got all those other guys with you," the man screamed, adding in a few more choice words to make his point. "You think I'm being brave because of these guys?" the mayor asked. "Tell you what, you stay right there, and I'll come on over by myself, and we'll settle this for good." The mayor ran forward, and there was a tremendous crash of metal as he leaped over the fence. He started scaling it. He was seriously going to climb over and get the guy. The man bent down, grabbed the remains of his tent, and started to sprint off, running away as fast as his drunken legs would carry him. He tripped and got up, tripped again, and jumped to his feet again, running away till he disappeared into some sparse brush. The mayor let himself back down the fence. He turned and walked over towards us. "You can have the spot we just cleared. And remember, follow the rules and show some respect, and you're welcome to stay. Break the rules, and you'll find yourself on the outside. You better set up your tent now while there's still some light."